Good evening, good evening, good evening, y'all. Good evening. I am Renee Williams, and I am here to tell you that I am so proud of y'all for the ones that been winning treatment, the ones that's getting out of treatment. I am very proud of y'all because it's one step, one day at a time. Let us take a moment for the addicts who still suffer in and outside of these walls. To the God of my understanding, thank you. I thank you for everything you're doing. I thank you for every hurt, every pain, every restoring me to a person that I didn't used to be, the person that I am today. I thank you, God. I just thank you. I'm in a thankful mode today. More will be revealed. Seriously, more will be revealed. We are on step 8. Before we get on step 8, I like to give some shout outs. Shout out to the therapist and the counselor who does such a great job in helping restoring people's idea and thinking about addiction. I like to give a shout out to the group homes who take in people's that men's and women's who recovering, that's struggling to stay clean. Give a shout out to you all. I give a shout out to you all so much because it takes me back down memory lane. I like to give a shout out to the mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and cousins and nephews and nieces that have lost a loved one due to addiction, due to an overdose. And I thank God that He's letting you still continue to live on, even with the pain that we carry of losing a loved one due to our addiction or due to the overdoses. I give y'all a shout out today too. I even give myself a shout out because I lost a son due to addiction, and I'll never forget it. And I always tell people, where you think that it won't, it can. When you think it can't happen, it will. So I'm just giving y'all a shout out today because I love y'all. And addiction is what my purpose was, to find out who I was. And I thank God that He allowed us to go through the struggles and the pain and the misfits of how we misused ourselves and hurt ourselves and brought harm to other peoples. And this step right here, this step is it's a new kind of step. I love this step because this step right here is a new kind of being, a new way of getting honest. Getting honest. Did y'all hear me? Getting honest about whatever you went through and what you need to do and what is going to bring you to the level of getting honest. It's a new kind of honest, y'all. For the ones who ain't never did addiction, for the ones who ain't never went through nothing, you don't know what I'm even talking about. It's a new kind of honest. A new kind of honest. It says we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. So, I have to tell y'all something. Recovery, being clean, is something that I didn't see for myself, and I'm sure y'all didn't see for yourself neither. I'm sure that y'all didn't see yourself recovering. Step 8 is very powerful. Step 8 is a new kind of honesty. It's about you opening up and being honest and getting clean and remembering and trying to put everything in perspective. But it's a new kind of honesty. Y'all think I'm lying, but listen to it. Every day that I struggle with self, every day that I have to deal with things that hurt me, and the biggest thing that I had to deal with in this step was betrayal. Betrayal of me, how I betrayed me, and how I betrayed other people's. Every day I ask God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom. Did you hear me? And the wisdom to know the difference. This step is about humility. We wanted to find freedom. You didn't hear me say I, because we all have to go through that. We all going to have to go through this. This one right here. We all going to have to go through finding freedom from guilt. We have carried for many years. We have carried. Making that list to peoples we had harmed and hurted, to finally be able to clear away the fear and the guilt. Come on now. We have to be willing before this step will make an effect on us. We have to be willing to go through this step to free ourselves from the guilt and the shame and the fear. I didn't want to do this step. This step is awesome. When I tell you this step is awesome, because it's a new kind of honesty we hold with peoples. They said we had to make a list. We had to make a list, y'all. The disease of an addiction does not discriminate. Neither does Narcotics Anonymous, regardless of your race, your age, your identity, your greed. I had to realize no matter where we come from, come on y'all, where we come from, how we was brought up, how we was raised, how we was brought up and how we was raised, or how we was living. NA is always open. The doors are open. You see, my sister Evangelist Selena Green is on here. You heard what I said. I had to realize no matter where we are from, or how we was raised, or how we was brought up, how we was living, NA doors is always open. We need some honesty before making this list. Making this list. The definition that, it was a couple of definitions that I had to look up when it came to this step 8. It says we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Hey, Pamela, to make amends. Every day, I have to say it again. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Hey, Cousin Pam. Hey, baby. This step is a real deep step, because it's a new way of being honest. It's a new way of honesty. Y'all don't get it, but you will. It's a new way of honesty in this step. And this step is going to set you free. I remember, I had to sit down and think and start writing. And another one is, one of the definitions for this step is harm in inflicting pain and suffering loss. Suffering lost. And what we said, done, left, undone words, action, unintentional, intentional. Because we did some intentional things and we did some unintentional things. The 8th step presents us with a problem, admitting we had harmed other people because we thought we was the victim. Come on, Renee, what? I thought I was the victim. I thought I was the victim of my addiction, of your addiction. We want to be better peoples, to not judge and fault peoples of our addiction. We have to clean up our mess. We have to clean up our mess by being honest. A new kind of honesty. Did you hear what I said? It's a new kind of honesty. I can't remember or even know all the persons I have wronged. I know the ones in my family. I know the ones that I grew up with. I knew the ones that I was wrong. But this is some kind of honesty right here. When you can take a list and to all persons. And like I said, I can't remember all the peoples I wronged, but the ones I can, then that's the ones I had to deal with. My mother, I did wrong the teachers, the children's, my doctor. I fell short. I fell short more than I exceeded. Let me say that again. I fell short more than I exceeded in recovery. Using drugs. We had failures. We didn't exceed the things that we wanted to. We didn't exceed the things that we needed to. I fell short. I fell short more than I exceeded. So we had to listen to other members. Let's talk about that. I had to listen to other members. When I went to a meeting, I had to listen. I had to put the cotton in my mouth, and I had to go to meetings, and I had to listen to other members that experienced all they strength and they hopes. I had to listen to other people's talk about they pain and they endurance of how they hurt other people's, even hurting themselves. And I realized, I hear them people talking, I'm like, them people don't know what they talking about. This was me when I first came into recovery, and I realized, man, I had to realize, them people's talking about me. Them people's is telling my story. Them people's, is making me cry. Them people's is putting me in my feelings, because I hear something that I can relate to. I hear something that I know about. I experienced it. I understand it, and it was painful. Coming from another member, coming from many members, it was very painful, and I started realizing I'm in that story. I'm in your story. I'm in your story. I hesitated working this step. I didn't want to work this step because it's some kind of honesty, this step. You got to get honest in this step. Step 8 offers us a big change from a life dominating change from a life by guilt and remorse. This step right here. This step is an awesome step because it had me to figure out where I'm going, what I've done, what I need to do. We received a new freedom. I received a new freedom. You received a new freedom that could end or stop the isolation. Isolation, I isolated. You isolated. Because we had did so much dirty work, we had did so much dirty things, we started isolating. I talked about that last time. We started isolating. I needed to be forgiven. I needed to be forgiven. I needed to be forgiven. We tend to be more forgiven now. But I needed to be forgiven for the things I had done, for the peoples I have hurt, for the harm that I brought to peoples. I finally realized I couldn't do this step alone. It was no way, y'all, I could do this step alone. We are no longer intentionally making life miserable for peoples and for ourselves. That's what I like about this step. I am no longer making people's lives miserable and myself miserable because I did something. I got a sponsor, and I worked this step with my sponsor to free myself. Because if I didn't, I would have kept using. If I didn't, I would have never stopped using. I would have kept using until somebody suggested to me that I needed to do this step with a sponsor. This step right here helped me bury. This step right here helped me build awareness. Little at a time. It made me be aware. It was telling me. It was showing me that I had to be aware of everything that I'm finna do. All the peoples that I had to ask for forgiveness or talk to them. But this step can be dangerous too. Because I know I told you sometime I went to peoples and was like, I'm clean now. And I want them to say I'm sorry. You can't do that. Can't do that to everybody in this step. That's why you need a sponsor. That's why you definitely need a sponsor. We hurt others directly or indirectly. That's deep. We hurt others directly or indirectly. I had to think about that last night. I realized I wasn't a victim. I was the problem. Did you hear what I said? I wasn't a victim. I was the problem. But we seem to think that when we start using that we are victims. We done caused harm. We done did stupid things. We were still getting high every day to keep getting high. And somehow I still thought I was the victim. I wasn't a victim, y'all. We couldn't wait. I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to get out here and do this step and make everything okay, but it didn't turn out that way. And then I had to get a sponsor. Because when I went to people and tried to talk to them and tried to explain to them, I was up under addiction. I did this. I told you about how I went to that woman and told her I was sleeping with her husband. I found out that this step is deeper than what it seems to be. Because if we not prepared for what we're going to get from this step, that's why you have to get a sponsor to help you with, making them, we made a list and the people that we are harmed and became willing to make an amends. You can't make amends to everybody. You can't make amends when you done did for infidelity and people ain't ready for that. Because I'm clean, don't mean they're ready for that. Man, it entitles me to how I did with my husband, my friends, You know, I'm trying to go make an amends to them, and they looking at me like I'm crazy. You know, they don't want to hear that mess. You know, I didn't know how to make an amends. I just did what the steps said. I didn't try to study it. I didn't try to do nothing. But then after I learned a valuable lesson from this step, then that's when I went and called my sponsor. She said, girl, ain't no way that you can do that step alone. You need help with that step. Because everybody don't care about your amends. Everybody don't care about you being clean. Everybody don't care you have a new way to live. Everybody don't care about you changing your lifestyle. Everybody don't care about that. I remember I had to talk to my family members and admitting to them and telling them what I had done and about my addiction, and they looking at me because they had a fear of knowing what I was finna say to them. They had a fear of it, knowing what I was finna say before I even said it. They knew something was wrong with me. They know I was on something because of the stuff I was doing was out of the ordinary. Stuff I was doing and lying and stealing and taking and manipulating and, you know, they knew something was wrong. So when I told them, they was looking at me with that fear. I could see the fear them knowing what I was finna tell them. But I had to do it anyway. I couldn't stop. I couldn't keep letting fear stop me from working this step. You know, I couldn't do that. But I didn't want to deal with this step because this step was bringing out a new kind of honesty in me. You know, this a good step. This is an awesome step because it made me get honest. It made me have a willing to tell the truth. It had made me humiliated, but it helped me in the long run. I humiliated myself because I needed to get honest. That's why I say I love this step, because this step is a new way of being honest. I thought I had never harmed and hurted no one because I was the victim in my use of using. Please don't try to do this step alone. Get you a sponsor. You're going to need a sponsor when you do this step. I tried to do it alone by myself, and I messed up. I had not the first clue. All I thought it was just writing down the people you had harmed. I couldn't remember everybody in my addiction when I was using that I had harmed or did something to. And then I found myself getting yelled at, getting cussed out. You know, people didn't want to hear that. They didn't want to deal with me because I done stole some money from them or stole some dope from them. You know, they didn't want to hear all that. They didn't want to hear the good news that I had got clean and my life was turning around and I was in recovery. They didn't want to hear that. They could care less about that. They could care less about all of that. They didn't want to hear nothing. I was bumping heads, getting cussed at, wanting to get jumped on, all because I was trying to make amends for the things that I had done, but I didn't know I was making amends in the wrong way. Everybody ain't accepting that I done got clean and I'm not stealing no more and lying no more. And I'm not in that world of addiction no more. They didn't want to hear that. At all. And some of the peoples, once I did it with my sponsor, some of the peoples I didn't even want to make amends to, because I had resentments toward them. I had built up a wall between some peoples I didn't never want to make amends to. But this, I tell you, this right here, this step 8 is some kind of honesty step. Because it's going to take you to a level that you got to get honest, even if you didn't want to. Told you I didn't want to, but I did. I needed to free myself so I wouldn't go back into isolating and wouldn't go back to still doing the stupid stuff that I done. I just didn't. I had to think of every name in every situation. I found I couldn't delete names because I had resentments. I had to make resentments to them. If not in person, on a piece of paper. I had to do something different. I had to make this is some kind of honesty step right here. Because it took me to a level of not understanding. We are no longer intentionally making life miserable. That's the part that got me. Making life miserable for peoples and for ourselves. Sometimes the best thing people can do when we doing this step is they don't want to forgive us. And that's why it's very much so that you have to forgive yourself first. You have to forgive yourself first. Because some people ain't going to forgive you. They ain't there where you at. They ain't going to never be where you at when it come to you. Or they might change. Peoples do change. Peoples can change. All I know, I found myself receiving a new freedom that I didn't have to no longer isolate. And I talked about that with y'all because I isolated myself a lot of times. A lot of times I isolated myself because I didn't want to deal with the addiction. I didn't want nobody to know the losses and the suffering, pain that I went through. I didn't want to deal with that. I'm telling you, this is some kind of honesty step. And I had to get butt naked truthful. I had to tell the truth on me. I am not the victim here. I had a long time of using. And sometimes it's still, when I look back at the dirty things I've done and look at the things that I did, it's still kind of painful. Y'all don't believe me, but it is. How sorry I am for not, being there with the kids or doing the best thing that I could. Sometimes we just get, I'm still clean, see, but I'm human before I'm anything else, and I know for a fact, I realize the need to slow down and consult with my sponsor about what I'm doing in making amends. I had to do that. Yes, I was going to find myself as a breaking point. I done got cussed out, yelled at. One girl threw a book upside my head because I wanted to make amends and tell her how sorry I was for stealing her $200 and her watch out of her room. She didn't want to hear that. It's certain type of harm, obvious. It's certain type of harm, that we do to peoples, And I had to learn that anytime you are sorry for something you done in this step, and it causes you to want to deal with your sponsor and make amends, this is some kind of honesty step, and it opened doors for me. It made me realize all the time I was never the victim. I was the problem, and that's why I never use again. This addiction is real, and it kills and it steals and it restores, and I still ask God every day, about the serenity prayer all the time. I do it through the day because I needed to accept things that I couldn't change. And I needed to understand why this step meant a lot for me, because it was a step that was taking me to an honesty level. The honesty level that I can be honest and free, and I got free. There are situations where we have problems recognizing what we did as harmful. harmful. But it says may have difficulty identifying who, in particular, we had harmed. And I understood that because I had a problem with that. I couldn't even hardly identify with some of the people that I had harmed just by words, or just by using them. Come on now, come on, just by using them. Hey, Michelle. Hey, Raphael. I hope I'm saying that name. By using them. And you tell me that I wanted to do this step? No. And if you ain't ready to do this step, don't do it. Don't do step 8. We made a list. Don't do step 8 unless you got a sponsor. Because I tried to do this step and I got my feelings hurt back to back for about 6 months. Back to back. Thought I could do it on my own. Thought I was working this step on my own self-will. And I found that to be not true. You cannot do it. I needed a sponsor. This is some kind of honesty step. I never knew that a step like this, tell them to cut the heat off, please. A step like this can make you become an honest, productive person in recovery. That's why I always say the serenity prayer. And the good feeling about this step, as I was writing, says making amends. Making amends. I had to make a list. And that list was long. But, it probably would have been longer if I could remember at least no. I harmed people I didn't even know. No lie, no lie. I was up under the influence of drugs and alcohol. And I hurt people. And I hurt myself. I can't remember everybody that I hurt. So I had to do, my sponsor told me, just write a letter making amends to everybody you don't even remember or know that you hurt. Just make amends. Just write it down. Have a witness. That made sense. That way I wouldn't leave nobody out. That way I can still free myself for the ones that I couldn't remember that I had even heard it. Because in your addiction, you won't remember all of it. You won't remember. But this step right here brought me a sense of peace, of freedom, that I don't have to isolate no more. I don't have to run. I don't have to hide. All I got to do is just be honest. This is an awesome step. This is some kind of honesty step right here. Yeah, it humiliated me because I was feeling all some kind of way, writing this, making amends of who I hurt. Y'all think this step is easy, but this step is awesome. And it's not that easy. And anybody that they say it is, they're lying. This step brought out some things in me that I thought I had forgot about. I thought I had forgot about some people that I hurt bad. When I say bad, I hurt some people's bad. From my lying and manipulating, acting like I'm always the victim. Like I didn't have a drug problem. I wasn't addicted to alcohol, drugs, pills, but I want to play the victim role. I was never the victim. I was the problem. And once I started realizing that I had became a problem to myself, I realized that the damage I've done, the type of harm I have hurt people's, and we come so far. We come so far when we start recovering. We don't want to mess up. That's why I thank God that I have my sponsor. I've been having my sponsor for 36 years. And I thank God for my sponsor. I thank God for her fussing at me and sending me to the point to where I felt like I wanted to boil because I was mad. But I asked for it. I watched for that sponsor for a whole year. I needed somebody that was going to be hardcore and wasn't going to tell me just something I needed to hear, that was going to tell me something that I didn't want to hear. That part. Finally, we get into our deeper feelings. You know, this step going to bring you into your deeper feelings. You know, I'm literally, to be honest, when I worked this step with my sponsor, and it was a 5-month course with her. It took me 5 months just to get to the writing. It's so many different levels in this step. You know, some you can do face to face, some you can do in your writing, some you can do in making amends for the ones that's dead and gone. You know, I went through a lot of different phases with this step, and she helped me to identify which each one of them stages. And I had to get buck naked too. Now this step is some kind of honesty step. It's about humility. It's about honesty. It's about willingness. It's about letting go. It's about free will. It's about opening up. It's about accepting the things that you had done. Hey, this is an awesome step. This is some kind of honesty step here. And I loved it. It made me feel good as I went through them steps with my sponsor. But me trying to do it on the self-will of Renee, I was messing up. I got keys thrown at me. I got books slammed at me. I got slapped. I remember that slap. I felt like my whole face was burning when she slapped me, and I had did some real bad stuff to her. I had did some stuff but I was hurting. I needed these people to forgive me. We want forgiven so bad that if you go out and try to make these amends to the people you have hurt and the ones you can remember, and they ain't seen you in a while, or they ain't talked to you in a while, you better look out. Because I'm telling you what happened to me on Renee's self-will of trying to do it on her own. And I had to call my sponsor, and she bust out laughing. She said, that's what your butt get. That's what you get. That's why you got a sponsor. It tells y'all this step needs to be done with a sponsor. But I took it upon Renee, picking up self-will again, that I could do this step by myself. Ain't that crazy? I'm clean. I'm thinking different, acting different. And I still picked up the self-will of me, of Renee, to do that. I can do this on my own. I can call my one friend girl and meet her up. We met her up at Mykonos. I'll never forget her, at a restaurant. And I was trying to tell her, you know, I'm clean with a sincere heart. And she threw them keys at me. She called me every name in the book. And she tell, I don't give a F about you being clean. I wouldn't care if I never see you no more. Pay me back my money. Pay me back the $5. Pay me back the $200 you stole. She just went on and on and made a big old scene. And all I can do was stay humble. In a restaurant. Stay humble. Because everything she had said was true. That's what I got. That's my fault. Trying to do, making amends, trying to talk personal to person with a person that's still holding a grudge with me because of my lifestyle or what I've done in my using. Never again. I called my sponsor and I told her, she said, Renee, what do the book say? I said, I know what the book, there go your hard head butt again, trying to do self-will, trying to do it your way, and you don't know nothing about that step. We only went over it and talked about it and what it means, but you gonna go and take your self-will to try to do it on your own. Got slapped, keys stole at you, got a book, got cussed out, called you every name in the book, you know, stuck their middle finger up in my man. I suggest y'all don't do this step without a sponsor. Y'all, please don't do this step without a sponsor. Because you think because you feeling good and you good now and you've been clean past a year and multiples a year, and then all of a sudden you ready for this step and you can do it on your own. I just told you don't. It's not a step you can do on your own. Because see, your sponsor have been through it before you got to it. And my sponsor helped me out, Renee. Everybody ain't accepting amends for the harm that you caused them. Everybody ain't accepting that you clean, but where my 500 at? Where the 200 at? And then I gave her 300 and then told her I will owe her, told her I will owe her 200. That made her even mad. That made her even madder. Threw keys at me, that lady made a scene. And all I can do was accept it and sit there, because I knew I did it without my sponsor. I'll never do that mess again. I had to become willing. Now that I had made my list and who I added names on my piece of paper, I start feeling and seeing some clarity on what they mean. Why I had to realize, why was I saying I was sorry? Why did I go to people on a personal level, either on a piece of paper making amends? Why did I tell you I was sorry? Sorry is not efficient alone. The damage was done. Telling somebody I'm sorry, that ain't nothing to them. That ain't nothing to them. Not to repair the damage I done. I did a lot of damage. I caused a lot of pain. I caused some friendships, very good friendships, I lost in the midst of me being clean. It said, then I asked myself and I said, why is it only changing my behavior not sufficient to repair the damage I have caused? And when I read that part, I had to think, why is it only changing my behavior and not my sufficient to repair the damage I have caused? It's very rare that we don't owe at least some financial amends. And I owed a lot of financial amends. I was getting money for this lie, getting money for that lie, taking money for this lie because I was desperate. I was hungry for more drugs. I didn't like being sober. I didn't like being clean. That means I had to deal with some stuff. I had to deal with some hurt. I had to deal with some pain. I had to deal with some losses. I had to deal with some rejection. I had to deal with some problems, and I just didn't want to be clean. I didn't. So I had to figure some things out. I had to figure that I needed to do better, to change the way I think. I had a lot of financial amends that I had to write. And it didn't work good for me. It didn't work good for me at all trying to do it by myself. Hey, Belinda, it didn't work out good for me. I should have went with my sponsor. But when you knew coming in and you cleaned 2 or 3 years, you think you got it all down packed. I thought I had it all down packed. And when I called my sponsor, she laughed at me and said, what the hell is your problem? There you go with that self-will, that impulsiveness, that you want to do it your way. You don't want nobody telling you what to do. You don't want nobody giving you suggestions. You don't want to work the steps. I told you just go through the steps. We're going to work the step out. I'm going to show you the different orders of the steps to do amends, to do face-to-face, to do certain peoples. If I just slept with you, I told you all about that too. If I slept with your husband and think that I'm finna make some amends to tell him I'm sorry and then go to his wife who she don't know nothing about me And I go to her and tell her because I'm angry and hurt, I'm going to make amends. Man, I messed that step all the way up. I messed this step up so bad to where when I called her, she hurt my feelings so bad, I had to do an intellectual look at me. Renee, what you doing? Renee, what do the book says? Why are you trying to do this alone? This is a painful step. This step ain't no joke. It's a new kind of honesty step for me. And I say that because you get to a point in your life where you get honest. I mean, you got to get honest. You got to be willing to get honest and willing to accept the humility that you're going to feel working this step. And this is an awesome step, but it's some kind of honesty step. If you break it down and you really finna be honest. I realized I had to clean up my mess. So I took it upon myself, Renee, to go in there and try to make amends to everybody. I tried to make amends to two people that I noticed still was alcoholics, and I tried to make amends to them. And I remember one of them threw a drink at me and turned around and asked me for $20. Now, why am I going to an alcoholic and I'm clean? Going to an alcoholic that I liked it so much to try to make amends to. Now, you would think I would learn something in them 2 or 3 years, wouldn't you? But I didn't. Self-will popped up again. My self-thinking popped up again where I can go see my friend. I know where he at, and I'm finna go make amends, because I stole money out of his truck, and he was sitting there drinking. I wanted to make amends. He took that bottle and threw that bottle. I smelled like J&E, whatever that J&E was. That alcohol brown, and it was all on my shirt. How dare you come and make some amends? And you clean, but I'm still damn using. He was right. Then it made me look so stupid. It made me look so bad. How in the world is you clean, Renee, and you gonna go to just because this person is your friend? My sponsor said that's what I get. And you go to an alcoholic, and he's an alcoholic in denial. But you go to him to try to make some amends when you done stole his money out of his truck, when you done took his wallet, when you took his keys to his truck because he wouldn't give you no more money. And you go to him up under the influence. Woo! Go to him up under the influence of alcohol and try to make amends and tell him how sorry you were. He told me, yeah, you sorry, all right. I ain't going to tell you all the names he called me, but I accepted the humility set in because I shouldn't have been doing this step without my sponsor. Point 1. Becoming willingness to keep an open mind that when we read something, it's giving us a dialogue of what we supposed to follow and what we supposed to do when it comes to working these steps. And you got to work the steps. And you got to work them right. You can't work them the way you think you want to work them. You can't work them the way you think you should work them. You got to work it like it says. That's the only way it's going to work. I didn't understand that. I was messed up. I promise you I was messed up. When I went through these steps last night, I started thinking about, how what wrongs I had done and how I accumulated so many inside feelings and how I sometimes, even in my 2 or 3 years clean, how sometimes I still had the urge to want to pick up and use again. I had put myself in a serious, dangerous mood. I should never have been going to nobody trying to make an amends. And I hadn't worked the steps with my sponsor. And then I found myself making a list. And I left some peoples out that I didn't want to make a list to. I just couldn't see myself going to them and because I had harbored some resentments and some angriness, and I didn't want to add them to the list. When me and my sponsor got ready to work the step, and she asked, we was working the steps, and she asked me, Renee, why you got this page? This page is real long. You got about 7 pages. And that's a shame, but that's how life shows up. I had about 7 pages of peoples I had hurt and what I took that I can remember that I had took from them or stole from them or did to them. And then I had another paper that was on the other side. She said, what's this? I said, them the people that I really hurt it really bad, but I didn't put them on the list. I didn't want to deal with them. I don't want to deal with them. She said, oh, no, you can't do that. This is an honest program. She said, step 8 is about humiliating, humility, and it's about open mind and willingness. Yo, but go add them to that page. Then the fear set in. Then I didn't want to do it no more. I told her I don't want to do it. She said, the hell with you, I'm gone. She was that kind of sponsor. Hell with you, I'm gone. And I sat there and I looked. I sat there and I looked at that paper, that piece of paper that I had deleted off the piece of paper that I was supposed to make amends to. And I thought about how she got up and left, said, oh, hell, I'm gone. Trying to do it my way. Hey, Charlotte, good to see you. Trying to do it my way. And she walk and left me sitting there. A paper, see, this is some kind of honesty step. Step 8 is all about honesty, humiliating, this is a bad step because I went through too many changes with this step. You want me to sit down, and that was my job, to write down all the people that I had harmed and hurt. But it's a different kind of harm and a different kind of hurt and a different kind of take on what you finna do. I didn't know all that. Because remember, I got up and went and tried to do this step without her. And when I called her, these people was throwing stuff at me, laughing at me. I mean, do you imagine what I went through clean? And I couldn't drink and I couldn't take another hit. I was hurt. And I was like in my 3 years, and I was like, that urge came up. As soon as we get humiliated, as soon as we get hurt, as soon as somebody hurt us, the first thing that urge want to come up, no matter how many years you clean, no matter what you done did to stay clean, it'll still come up. But it's a thought. It's a thought. It don't mean you have to do it. It don't mean that. So she told me that list you got over there, the ones you deleted off this paper, because she saw me. I had this whole big old 4 or 5 piece of paper that I had wrote all these names on. And then I put the deletes on the ones that I didn't want to make amends to. And I put them on another piece of paper, and I said, I'm not making amends to them. I'm only making amends to these people. She said, how are you going to work a program that tell you that this is an honest program? You can't work that step unless you finna be honest. I told you this step was awesome for me. It's some kind of honesty step. It's a different kind of honesty. One, when we get on step 1, we admit that we are powerless over our addiction. Our lives have become a management. Yeah, we had to admit. And we had to show up to admit that we are powerless. But this is some kind of honesty step right here. And I didn't like this step. Because this step had to take me back down memory lane and remember all the ugly, dirty things and how I stole and how I was so ugly and inside. I didn't even want to do this step. Because this step is some kind of honesty step. I didn't want to do that. And then She told me, I said, well, I don't want to do them. She said, I see. You deleted their names and put them on a different paper. How you gonna separate amends? If you work in an honest program, Renee, how you gonna separate amends and you pick the people that you want to make amends to, or do face to face, or write a letter? However, what step we take when we do that, how you gonna pick and choose who you want to make amends to? I said, well, I don't want to do them. It was something about them names that I really, really had a fear of that I didn't even want to touch. She said, well, hell, I'm gone. I said, okay, bye. Now I'm mad. I'm in my feelings now. Okay, bye. For 2 days, I kept looking at them names I deleted and put on a different paper. And then I went back over the step, and I remember when it said this step is you'll feel humiliated, you'll feel lost, you'll feel hurt. You know, this step took me through too many feelings and changes. And I didn't like that because it was making me work my brain. It was making me think. It was making me realize all the things that I had done that wasn't right. So 2 days, I looked at that piece of paper and I said, I asked for this sponsor. I wanted this sponsor, and this sponsor's been good for me because she do not play games with me. You know, that was my problem. I thought I had all the answers. I can do self-will whenever I got ready. I can do it my way or no way. And I've been doing it my way and no way. And I was failing all the time. You know, I failed at things and I didn't exceed things and I messed up my life. Sit your butt down and let humility set in, and you do what your sponsor say do. Because she was the sponsor, wasn't going to play. She ain't had time. I had the best sponsor, I think, in the world. I ain't never had to change a sponsor, add a sponsor, nothing. She was just picked out just for me. I picked her out just for me. Then I had to look at, okay, God, what can I do to open my mind to willingness? She just left me. She left me with a paper right here that I deleted names. And then she left me with a paper here. And then, you know, that spiritual principle stepped in, Renee. You got to be willing. You got to have some willingness to let go of your self-will. You got to you want to work these steps. You say you want to be good at these steps. You want to identify with these steps and know how these steps work, and that's going to play in your life daily. So you got to have a willingness to want to do that. And I kept looking at that paper, and I know I needed to do that in order to work an honest program. This step was very honest, and I didn't like this step because it was pulling some things out of me that I was comfortable in still keeping inside, but yet I'm clean. That's double standard. You can't do that. If you're going to work one step, you got to work the other step. You got to work the steps. You can't add and subtract what you want to put in the steps. You got to work the steps. You can't get mad at the step because the step is making you feel some kind of way. It's making you mad because now you gotta have a willingness to look at yourself and see how you gonna make some men to some and not to others. But you say you working an honest step. This an awesome honest step right here. And then I had to say, God, please give me a willingness to want to do some things in these steps that I don't want to do. The steps wasn't made for me because I could make my mind up. Am I going to do this step? No. Do I want to do it that way? No. Why I can't do it that way? Because I don't want to. What happened to I don't want to? What happened to open-mindedness and willingness to do what you need to do to get through this step, to open and get you from, so you don't have to isolate no more, so you don't have to hide no more. You don't have to lie on top of lie on top of lie. It took me through a lot of changes, and I didn't like that. And we as recovering addicts, we don't like changes. We don't like, because see, we was used to our old way. We was used to doing things our way. We was used to getting high. We was used to getting drugs when we wanted. We was used to firing up some weed, or we was used to firing up some heroin, or we was used to doing it our way. But this step ain't about your way. This step is about the way they said you got to work it if you want to remain clean. I had all kind of amends that I had to make to myself. I told my sponsor, well, why, if I have to make amends to them, what about me? She said, you're going to make amends to you first. I'm like, and forget about the people. She said, no, you're going to make amends to yourself, Renee, first. You hurt you first. You hurted you more than you hurted anybody in the world. You hurted yourself first. So sit your butt down there and start making some amends to yourself, and let me go over what amends that you got to have to make to yourself. And they better be honesty amends. You better be honest when you come to making them amends. Man, my sponsor had me going for a minute. You know, I had to keep saying, but I asked for you. In my mind, I asked for you. Make amends. To me. That's when I realized that I was the problem. Hey, Michelle, that's when I realized that I was the problem. Make amends to me first. Okay. All right. Let me get a drink of decaffeinated coffee, sit here, because that was my job. That's my work she had me doing. I had to start making amends to me first. She said, nothing goes before you. You make amends to you first. So if you make amends to you first, you're working on what you need to do before we even go to the other source and peoples, and you just making amends. I said, okay, that's going to be easy. Let me go on and do this. And I got me some decaffeinated coffee and sat here, and I started making some amends to me. Okay, Renee, what amends you going to make? Well, I'm going to make amends, to me that I was wrong, but now I'm finna make up for it, because now I'm finna make amends to everybody that I hurt. I looked at that piece of paper, I said, no, that don't even look right. My sponsor ain't finna go for that. That don't look right. So I called her. I said, okay, hey, so when making amends, she said, well, ain't I working on something? I've been clean over 3 years, and I'm working on something, and I'm making amends to myself because I found myself, and now I can make an amends to everybody else. She said, hell no. No. I really want you to get honest, and what amends are you making to yourself? Don't call me back until you got enough of them, and you should have a lot of them. Because as we get clean and we come into recovery, making amends to ourselves is also talking about our character, our behavior, our attitude, our identity of who we are and what we did and why we did it. Said to myself, you doing too much. Dang, I don't want to do that. Making amends to myself is too painful. She getting on my nerves. She making me do too much. She got me making, make a list. And then, but she did tell me the first thing that when we get started on that, I was going to make amends to myself, and I jumped to making amends to everybody else. Self-will, Renee, trying to do it your way, always want to do it your way, and that's what got me in trouble in the first place, trying to do it my way. I'm like, dang. And then I called her back, and she said, now what? I said, you making me do too much. She said, find another sponsor. Crushed my heart. Crushed my heart. So she hung up. And she left me baffled. She left me baffled. I called her back. I knew I was getting on her nerves. I called her back. I said, why? Why? Why you tell me to get another sponsor? Look, I don't play games with you. You watched me, Renee, for over a year. You had to see something in me that you liked it in me. So you saw me do my footwork. And I don't play when I'm doing my footwork. Either you're going to do it my way or you find you a different sponsor. I had to tell her I was sorry. Promptly admit that I was sorry. Promptly admit that I was out of order. I had to make some amends to me. And I was scared. Instead of telling my sponsor, I'm scared because, making amends to me, I'm finna go back and think about all the creative things that I lied about and I did to get me one more. Who I hurt, who I underestimated because of friendship, and I had to do it. And I'm going to tell y'all something else. You can believe it or not. And I don't care if you believe it or not anyway. When I started making amends to myself, it took me like 7 days, 7 or 8 days. I cried like a fish because I had to make amends to me. That step 8 is some kind of honesty step. And I found out the true value of loving yourself. Because you're going to give yourself what you don't want to give it. But you want to find a way that you can get freedom from isolating and hurting yourself over and over again. So you know what I did? I told my sponsor, you ain't going to have no more problems out of me. I don't want to lose you because of my character or my behavior or in my inner feelings. So you won't have, and she didn't have no more problems out of me. I was ready. I was so bound down and hurt. When I made amends to myself, I cried because I didn't realize how much stuff that I had to forgive myself for so I can move on and make amends to the next people. I just didn't know I was that full. You don't know you that full until you sit down with a piece of paper and an ink pen. And good thing I was drinking decaffeinated coffee, because had it been caffeine, I couldn't have did all that. I can tell you that's why I don't drink. But I was honest and I cried. See, that's why I tell you, we don't look like what we've been through, but we done been through something. People's only can see the new look, the new smile, the new character, the new face, but you don't know what we've been through. You don't know what hell we had to go through to get to where we at. You don't know what it is just, making it from one day to another day, from another day just for that day without the use of drugs. When we've been so used to using drugs every day, 365 times a year. Come on, you don't know what we've been through. I know what I've been through. That's why I try not to hurt nobody. That's why I try not to use nobody. That's why I try not to belittle nobody, because I've been all them things. You got to love yourself. You got to give yourself the best out of these steps in order to free yourself and to be better. I'm better. I'm better. I thank God I'm better. And it's through these steps, step 8. And I'm going to tell you every day. And I look back and I was thinking, I said, Renee, much as you tell God to grant me the serenity to stay clean, you need to let that be known. Because that's part of the NA. That's part of NA. Legacy. And I had to tell God, even when things is going wrong in my life, I have to tell God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things that I can. And God, please give me the wisdom to know the difference. There's some things I ain't gonna never be able to change. There's some peoples I ain't gonna never be able to change. I went somewhere today and I'm still in my feelings. And I know God working on me because I keep asking him. And when I left, I had to say, God, grant me the serenity. Hey, Stella, grant me the serenity to accept the thing that I cannot change. See, these words mean something. The girl, these some bad words. These some bad words if you look at the serenity prayer. These some bad words that I practice every day in my life. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. That's with kids. That's with life. That's with friends. That's with relationship. That's and the courage to change the things that I can. Now, some things I can change. Some things I can change. I can change not letting you get to me like you used to. That's a change for me. Some things I can change. The courage to change the things that I can. And that's what I do on a daily basis. I'm only going to change the things that I can handle and change. That's all I'm going to do. And the wisdom to know the difference. Now, if you don't know the difference in the things that you cannot change and the things that you can change, then you need to get stuck and get a dictionary and start looking up the words accept and cannot and have the wisdom to know the difference. I know I done blessed someone today. I don't need nobody to tell me. To the young lady that texted me on my phone. She said after Friday she know who she is. Anonymity, I can't tell her name. But she called me Friday and said, after listening to you, I took myself back in treatment. And I told her, God bless you. I said, God got a blessing with your name on it. And that was the first blessing. You having the free will and the mind to put yourself back into treatment. Told her to call me if she need me. See, life is about not staying the same, but changing. If you stay in that role, that's just like you got this road. I'm going to let y'all go. It's just like you got this long road. You know how when you rolling dough and you have to take that roll and roll it a certain way? But if you take the dough and don't roll it and start going crooked or start going left field, right field, it ain't going to turn out right. That's the role in our life. That's the role in our life. We have to change. We can't stuck because of this or stay stuck because of that or stay stuck because it'll look like this. Recovery is about change totally. Not staying stuck to something that's not good to you or benefiting you. That's why some things I can't change. I leave it alone because that means if I can't change it, it's big enough for God and He'll change it. He'll fix it. So I have to let go of it. But I thank y'all. Do something nice and kind for someone today. You know, I give applause to everybody that's on here that I know that's clean. To everybody that's on here that changed their life. For everybody on here that had an open mind to look at situations and make a difference. I thank you so much. And I will see you next Friday. We talk about addiction. And then we on step 9. We made direct amends to such people whenever possible. Except when to do so would injure them or others. Now that's a deep one for me because I'm kind of going through a few things like that. And but God's still working on me. Like I tell you, ain't nobody on here perfect. We just get better. You know, I thank God. Thank y'all for being a part of my process. Thank y'all. I'm loving on y'all every week. You know, I thank God that He's still allowing me to get on here, my health and strength. Y'all health and strength is good. I thank God for putting people in my life. And I thank God that He never gave up on us. And He never will. That's the kind of God of my understanding that I deal with. He will never will. Say something good and nice to somebody and tell them that you love them, no matter how they make you feel or how they make you not like them. But you still got to tell them you love them. You know, you ain't got to be in love with them, but you can tell them that you love them. You know. So y'all have good. See y'all on Friday next week. I got a lot of stuff coming out that I gotta deal with. But hey, I love y'all, and don't ever forget it. Good night, good evening. Have a rest of good Sunday. Rest of good Sunday.